The next area we're going to look at is how can you increase the income that you get from your investments. And I'm going to touch on some different strategies that I've found that have generated good income. The first one is covered call income, and that simply involves selling a call option, which allows someone to buy your stock or maybe your ETF at a set price, which is the strike price, on or before a set date. Writing covered calls does not increase the risk that you have from your portfolio. You already are at risk when you own stocks from bear markets or the stock dropping. There's no more risk from selling a covered call. So it's the same capital, you're just generating more income than you already are from dividend income when you sell covered calls. So that is one strategy that many people use. It's super important to mention that covered call strategies only work in sideways or bull markets. And so all of it is part of an overall wealth plan to define how much money you want and how much risk you want to have in getting it. And then from there, fine-tuning each of these areas, and then that would come down to, does it make sense for me to sell covered call? Does it make sense for me to have stocks? How much do I want in stocks of what percent of my overall wealth? And does it make sense for me to sell covered calls against those stocks so I can increase my income? And I think a lot of the times it does make sense to sell covered calls. I just think a lot of people don't know about it. And it's a little bit hard for financial advisors to do it for their clients. A few of them do, but it's hard because when you have many clients, it's hard to manage a lot of covered calls, whereas for an individual investor, it's pretty easy to sell covered calls. The next strategy for income that we've used and that clients have used successfully is by getting income from real estate, whether that's a real estate rental or maybe even buying some land where you find a tenant that needs to lease some raw land, maybe a little bit of highway frontage or some sort of land for storage of something, and that generates a little income. That income can pay for the taxes and or perhaps even pay for financing on the real estate. We structured our rental real estate properties so that they're a little cash flow positive and they pay for the financing that we have in place on those properties. Now the financing, because we've owned them so long, is low relative to the value of the properties, which I like, but they basically pay for themselves. Real estate rentals can be structured so that they pay for themselves. So circling back to that discussion about capital, that capital can be used to generate income in a small amount of capital because there is leverage when properties are financed, but it can also end up, you can also end up experiencing capital gains if the property increases in value while you own it. And there's a very good chance that it will if you buy under the right circumstances. So that's super important. Investments in what I like to call slightly alternative investments in liquid assets, things like REITs and MLPs have a much higher dividend yield than the S&P 500 index, which yields historically around 1.8%, 1.7%. So you can get a little bit higher yields on MLPs and REITs, not a little bit, double or triple actually. But having said that, both REITs and MLPs have gone through a lot of turmoil in recent years, and they certainly need to be investigated carefully. But I do like to put them out there as slightly alternative investments that are easy to buy. They're easy to research. It's completely passive income beyond the initial research and a good way to get higher investment income off of a liquid portfolio. Bonds are another type of investment that pay income. I only mention them here really as a way to add defensiveness to a portfolio. That's how they're typically used now, because usually treasury bonds go up when stocks go down. But we have that whole issue that I've already touched on about the very, very long-term bond market, bull market that's come to an end as interest rates were going down and the value of bonds going up. So that's sort of an unknown, but some bonds do generate income for some investors that are interested in this type of income. It's not something I personally am doing right now outside of using bonds as a defensive play in my ETF portfolio. Small business income is the next income that I'll mention. It's incredible. Right now, the opportunity is, I think, still at an entry stage as far as getting into online investments. Venture capitalists and equity funds are investing in online businesses that have been founded by individuals. They are of course investing in companies that are making in the millions, but maybe $1 million to $5 million, $10 million. They're packaging companies that still leaves plenty of room for individual investors to start a website that generates $1,000, $2,000, maybe $3,000 a month. When you compare the amount of investment capital that you would need in order to generate that kind of dividend income, it's absolutely astounding. It's not an enormous amount of work. I think that content-based websites are one of the best opportunities now. I've got more information about this at retirecertain.com under the resources tab. I've built content-based websites. I like to write about things I like. Everybody has topics that they're passionate about, and if you want to build a content-based website around that, I think it's an incredible opportunity, and you get paid for advertising revenue and various other income streams that can be generated from online business. Buying online businesses also makes sense because they sell for a multiple of 3, so 3 times earning, versus many stocks that sell for, well, the S&P 500 is about, I think now, about 30 times earnings. The average is around 18, 17 times earnings, but many companies sell for 100 times earnings. So buying an online business that sells for 3 times earnings can make a lot of sense, but I only recommend it if you're comfortable with online business, you sort of know how to do it, and or you know how to hire a team to help you do it. And then the last thing I want to mention around this before I move to the very last point I want to make is that you can use your own skills, your own knowledge to generate consulting income. There is 0 capital involved, and I personally, while I don't have a lot of time for private consulting, I do private consulting. I find it really, really rewarding. And everybody, I should say, has something that they can consult on, that they can help other people with to solve a problem, an area of expertise, an area that they're passionate about. If you're in an area or you know about an area that historically doesn't pay a whole lot, you can group 2 or 3, 4 clients online easily now to be able to get a higher rate and still allow your clients to pay you a minimal amount for your consulting or your tutoring or your coaching. So this is an excellent way to be able to generate more income without using any of your investment capital. The most important thing I want to mention with all of this that I've touched on is whatever you decide to do with your money, start with the foundation of what it is that you want. What lifestyle do you want to live? And how much does that lifestyle cost? What do you spend now? How do you want to adjust that? Do you want to be able to do a little bit more? Don't limit your thinking. Don't feel like you can't do that. My Ultimate Rise wealth plan has 33 different income streams that work everything from very passive to active income streams based on all different kinds of personalities and desires and passions. And there's absolutely something for everyone. So people limit their thinking to, I've got to settle for this. I only have this much money, blah, 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 blah. We've We've all been so conditioned to that. So think beyond what your current limitations may be or what's going through your mind that limits you. Realize there are many, many different ways to generate income that are available to you, especially now. We live in an absolutely amazing time